We are live. We are live. Welcome to college football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. Talk about this Rebel Outpost YouTube channel with your loved ones. Also, if you want to support this channel through a donation, hit the $ where you put a comment in and we'll get you super chat as soon as possible. Welcome into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway in Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a legend in the chat room and with your phone calls later in the show. Holy smokes. I was getting all ready to talk about Big 12 quarterbacks. I'm going to talk about the Big 12 quarterbacks PATC rankings this weekend. Sometime this weekend, I promise you. I promise you. We've already been through the ACC quarterbacks and the SEC quarterbacks. We've done PATC rankings. We're going to go through the Big 12, the Big 10, and then we're going to rank the whole G5 going into the 2024 season. Then in March, we're going to be cooking. We're going to be looking at these rosters and doing our projections, taking the win totals, over, under win totals, and projecting going over, going under. We're going to be doing all those sorts of things. We're going to be doing watch parties for spring football games, just like we did last year. But man, right now, it's a big story after big story after big story. Chris Hughes, Super Chat. Thank you so much. Go Vols. The Volunteers and the Cavaliers. Tennessee in Virginia. The state of Tennessee. The Virginia Commonwealth. Holy smokes. Breaking news. The title of the show, NIL Collectives Unleashed. We talked about it in episode 1 in our Great Manifesto episode on this Rebel Outpost College Football YouTube channel. We talked about how the courts was not going to treat the student athlete any different than the student when it comes to name, image, and likeness. There is no guardrails placed on NIL right now on transfer rules. There is no rules. It's wide open. I'm going to go through an article from On3. I'm also going to go a little bit into what other people are saying. And then I'm going to give you what I believe is coming down the road. This really is not a surprise. But you remember when they talked about how these universities, these athletic departments, they were going to build a trust fund. It was part of this plan to create a new subdivision and all that stuff. I don't care what you call it. I don't care if you call it NIL, trust fund, whatever. There's going to be a general manager. There's going to be collectives. They're going to be working with the school. They're going to be working with the coaching staffs of all these sports sponsored teams in the athletic department. When you go on a recruiting call, you're going to have your general manager, the head coach. The general manager is going to know everything that is going on with the NIL collectives. The NIL collectives are going to get their marching order. They're going to get branded. It's going to be mostly in-house. There's some going to be out-house. But this is where the money is going to be delivered for higher compensation to the football players, to the basketball players, to the volleyball players, to the hockey players. And the money that's going to be coming in from this NIL collectives is going to come from every angle possible, including, I believe, the conference itself. And I'll get back to that later in the show. I want to thank everybody who's coming on in. Who's come on in at the start of Friday night, PATC, the Buckeye, Mr. Buckeye, Gerald Jones, early peak member, Randy Taylor, Marcus Wood, Coy, early peak member, 4637 Warrior, early peak member, D5 Terps, no, Stephen McNeely, early peak member, happy Friday, the Terrapin JD Turtle. We're with you, Godfather. Thank you so very much. Flug Father. Skull Ducky is in the house. The Evil Badger. Jeff Olson is in the house. Mr. Monkey says, AMAC. David Hackett. The perfect way to start a weekend. Thank you for those kind words, Mr. Hackett. Early peak member. He's in the house. J. Rod is also in the house, hoping everybody is having a good Friday. Tyler Brown, we need an NIL collective for Greg. What to name it? Fat guy from Minnesota. And John Bennett, spending my Friday night with a fat man from Minnesota. I appreciate it, John. Thank you for coming on in. Early peak member, Derek Marie, Bill G, Ted Evans, Expedition Greg, Grateful Trojan, they're all in here. Kenneth Evans is in here. The Architect is in the house. Secret Agent is in here. Matt Neeson, Hagen, Foster, holy moly. TCU, Horned Frog, Mick Stevens. Stacked show? No. Well, this is massive. What was ruled in the courts today. We're going to be going through it. Do I have everything lined up behind that? No, I don't. So we don't have 3 or 4 stories. We have one gigantic story, and it is going to have implications starting tonight, tomorrow. We had different state laws. We had different universities handling NIL differently. Some use NIL for inducement. Some did not because the NCAA ruled that you couldn't use it for inducement and all. Nah. Everybody's going to be using NIL the same way. Wide open. No limitations. We have no limitations right now on transfers. We have no limitations right now on NIL. And I think when it comes to NIL, I don't think we're going back. I don't think we're turning back. And I'm going to give you my reasons why here in a little bit. So this story itself, while it may not create the juices, it's a massive story dropped tonight, Friday night, February 23rd. Ryan Willie, I think the smaller schools will drop sports. Lee Go Gators is in the house. Jamie Thornton. I don't know if I broke the internet. I don't know if I broke it, but maybe we tipped over the table just a little bit. The Red Raider, Laura Weiss, is in the house. Stephen Clark is in the house. The Big Lubbock Early Peak member is here at the beginning of the show. 2 King Slots Early Peak member. Florida State still in the ACC. That is correct. Kevin Howard. Wow. Thank you so much for becoming an Early Peak member. Thank you for your generosity to this YouTube football show, college football. Kevin Howard, you sir are officially knighted Cloak and Dagger. Congratulations and thank you so very much. Now you can go and watch Early Peak Cloak and Dagger episodes from members only. I think we'll be dropping one this week. We're going to be definitely dropping one this week, and a new one. If anybody else is interested in becoming an Early Peak member, just go to the description below the video. There's a link. Hit the link, and when you become a member, when you hit that join button and become a member, you get membership only Cloak and Dagger videos where you are the first to get the first drop of information. So if you're interested, go to the link and hit the join button. 74 and sunny in Malibu. Trojan NIL is finally fully funded. Here we come. Illini Ted is in the house. Don in Kansas. Here we go. Okay, let's get going here. Let's get going. Got my Cloak and Dagger mug. First of all, for those who do not know, massive breaking news tonight. Whoops. That was not supposed to be there. I hope I did not screw everything up. Nicole Auerbach, The Athletic. This court order that grants the preliminary injunction to stop NCAA from enforcing NIL rules in recruiting is applicable to all recruits and all schools in all states, not just Tennessee and Virginia. Tom Mars. Now, this is why I don't think we're turning back, ladies and gentlemen. Tom Mars. For those who might wonder what today's federal court ruling in Tennessee says about the likely final outcome of this case, statistics show the NCAA has only a 16% chance of ever being allowed to enforce its NI rules anywhere. The correlation between motions for preliminary injunction and ultimate case outcomes. The history would tell us it does not look good for the NCAA to enforce its current NIL rules at any time, anywhere. We are probably seeing that we are probably listening to that the death rattle of the NCAA. Now, I'm not going to go through this. I went through court documents last night. Not going to do it 2 nights in a row, but I'm going to put that up on the screen if you want to go back and look at it. You go back and watch our live show. If you're going to want to go back at the ruling, we're going to be going through an article here real quick talking about the ruling way better than I can reading these documents. That's one page. This is the other page. I'm going to leave it up on the screen for a few moments so you can go back and read that all if you want. Now, judge grants preliminary injunction in Tennessee, Virginia, NIL lawsuits versus NCAA. Pete Knuckles, once again, great article written on 3. Judge Clifton L. Corker granted a preliminary injunction against the NCAA in the NIL lawsuit filed by the Attorney Generals of Tennessee and Virginia. The ruling now allows booster-funded NIL collectives to communicate with high school recruits, transfer portal players. There is no guardrails. There is nothing. There's no rules. There's nothing to enforce. The decision announced on Friday in the Eastern District Court of Tennessee in Greenville, Tennessee, comes after a preliminary injunction hearing on February 13th. Corker heard both sides in a hearing that lasted just over an hour, which included NCAA attorneys struggling to make clear to the court whether prospective athletes can engage in conversations about NIL opportunities. Without the give and take of a free market, student athletes simply have no knowledge of their true NIL value, Corker wrote in his decision. It is this suppression of negotiating leverage and the consequential lack of knowledge that harms the student athletes. So you can't put any guardrails, you cannot restrict them, they can talk to anybody, anytime. The court has ordered that the NCAA and all persons in active concert or participation with the NCAA are restrained from enforcing the interim NIL policy, NCAA bylaws, or any other authority that prohibits athletes from negotiating NIL compensation. All of this comes in the aftermath of NCAA launching an investigation into Tennessee for multiple alleged NIL violations. The court has ordered, well, we've already gone through that part. Offer letters could become the latest trend in college sports. And the decision comes with the basketball and football transfer portal windows set to open again. I have questions about. I'm a little excited about this in the sense of if an NIL collective working with let's just we're talking football here, but it'd be true in any sport. But okay, a head coach working with the collective, they know what their budget is, their current NIL budget. They get the general manager in there, they're discussing, they make an offer to a football player in high school or in the portal. And that football player signs the offer letter. Now, can that be used as a contract? Can that be used as a term contract to keep the football player at the football team and no one else can get him, just like a professional contract? I don't know. The term offer letters, does that mean that it's is it more than a letter of intent where you are signing a paper saying that you are giving your intent that you're going to be going into as a student to this university, you're going to be a football player under this football program? Is this a contract in which you have to stick with this contract? You have to play at this certain team for this amount of time. I don't know. I do not know the answer to that. Maybe somebody else in the chat or with the phone calls later in the show can clear this up. According to the New York Times, the NCAA search at Tennessee centered around the use of a private plane to fly Tennessee's quarterback Nico to Knoxville while he was a recruit, with funds for the plane raised by boosters. The chancellor, the athletic director of Tennessee have been vocal supporters, along with multiple politicians, for taking legal action. Corker wrote in Friday's decision today that encouraging free and fair price competition in the NIL market by enjoining the NCAA's NIL recruiting ban will serve the public interest. And then the Jonathan Skrmetti, the Tennessee Attorney General, says the NCAA is not above the law and the law is on our side. While the NCAA permits student athletes to profit from the NIL, it fails to show how the timing of when a student athlete enters such an agreement would destroy the goal of preserving amateurism. So the NCAA did not prove its point with the judge that, these student athletes, these high school football players, they should not be listening to NIL collectives when they're in high school. They should not be signing anything when they're in high school. And the courts are saying, what's the difference between doing this when you're in high school or after you've joined a football program in college? I just hope that these young men and women, these college athletes, get good representation when dealing with these NIL collectives. What does this mean for the NCAA? Well, I'm assuming the NCAA is going to do the same thing it did in transfer rules case and say, we're not going to enforce our NIL rule anywhere. midwinter college sports attorney told On3. In other words, they're going to do the same thing they did with the transfer. They're going to abolish all the rules because they have to. The ruling has come down on high. So, we'll have no transfer rules or NIL rules in recruiting. What are the collectives going to do now? They're unleashed. And that's the name of our show. NIL Collectives Unleashed. This was already happening before, but now they're going to do it without fear of punishment. And it wasn't happening before everywhere. There were institutions, there were athletic departments, there were coaches that were trying to follow the letter of the law, the rules that the NCAA has handed down, but no more. Everybody is going to be using NIL in the same way. There's going to be no difference. Now it's all about putting money into the NIL piggy bank. That's what this is all coming down to. It will be interesting to see what the rules the schools could have. They're already involved with a lot of the collectives as well. But this would just increase that involvement. No question about it. The head coach, general manager, collective head, they're all together trying to figure out. The coach is saying, I want this player, this player, this player, this player. They figure out a budget. They go, they offer the student athletes. They wine and dine the student athletes. The schools, the coaches, and the collectives are as one, in my opinion, going forward. Telling the collectives, back to the article, telling collectives what they want them to do and how much to offer. What is the recruiting process going to look like in the next few months? The stakes are high for the NCAA, which again in the courtroom is battling for its hold on amateurism. Tennessee and Virginia are all in and invested in the battle to defeat the governing body. Winning the lawsuit will leave NCAA powerless in governing NIL in college sports. And finally, in this article, the preliminary injunction ruling is just a start. At its core, the lawsuit is an antitrust case. Corker has already written in his temporary restraining order decision that considering the evidence currently before the court, plaintiffs are likely to succeed on the merits of their claim under the Sherman Act. We're not going back. We're not turning back. So we've been trying to figure out what to call this piggy bank that every athletic department is going to have. Trust fund, whatever. It doesn't even matter. Call it the NIL Collective. It's going to be the University of Illinois NIL Bank. Arizona, California, Berkeley, Stanford, Kansas, UCF, West Virginia, Syracuse. They're all going to have this depository, this vault of money that they're going to give out in NIL compensation. There's a couple questions that I have. One is, when they deliver, when they give this offer sheet, can they tie the player, be it the volleyball player, the softball player, the baseball player, the football player, can they tie that player coming out of the transfer portal, coming out of high school, can they tie that player to the school for a certain amount of time? Or is it to the student athlete, to the football player, this is how you're going to get paid, this is how much you're going to get paid as long as you are a football player and a student at this university. But that player still has the freedom a month later to go somewhere else? That is the question that I have. That's the big question that I have. Number two, what about, I believe, and it hasn't been covered by anything that I have seen this afternoon, but I gotta believe that the conferences are going to get involved and they're going to have some sort of rule among their schools in the conference to take some of that media money that they've been given by the conference, and that goes to the student athletes in those NIL collectives. So if the student athlete signs that NIL deal, then that sort of ties the player to at least the school or the conference, something that ties the players to get to the school. If that's not part of this, I still believe the conferences are going to make it part of a yearly thing where money from the conference, from those media contracts, a certain percentage goes into every school's NIL vault. That's how I'm looking at it. I'm interested in how you all are looking at it. I'm going to get through the chat, and then we're going to open up the phone lines. This is a big deal. And the NIL vault for each school is going to be, it already was the most important part of your program. I think we've all noticed that. But now the importance of it has grown dramatically here in the last few hours. You can induce players. Everyone's going to be doing the same thing now. Inducement. Get them to sign, and then we're going to find out later if there's anything binding when they sign. But inducement, you can get on a plane, you can get on a train, you can get on a bus, you can get on a three-wheeler, you can do whatever you can to get to the player and get them signed. Bags of cash, a Mercedes-Benz, anytime, anywhere, any place, give them the keys to the car. The student athlete now will not be treated any different than any student or anybody in the chat. If you can sell your name, image, and likeness, there is no restriction to you. And now there is no restriction to the quarterback of Georgia, to the left string, to the third string left guard of Hawaii. No restrictions to your name, image, and likeness. And now I think we're going to be getting reports of all sorts of different ways that these athletic departments are going to be growing their NIL vaults. And, this is not just for football. And it's not just for football or basketball. It's for everything. It's for everything. I'm going to go to your comments right now, and then going to open up the phone lines real quick here. Mitch, Cal, thank you so much. Michigan Wolverine, holy smokes. Thank you so much for becoming a new member, Cloak and Dagger member. You, sir, are officially Cloak and Dagger United. Thank you so much, Mitch. I do appreciate your generosity to the channel. You can now go into our YouTube channel and watch the membership-only Cloak and Dagger videos. I appreciate it. We also have a super chat coming on in from Hero75. Kids are going to get burned really easy with this. They will sign saying that they have to start, say, 9 games for a certain amount of money, only to have the coach start them for only 8 to pay them less. That could be part of it. There's going to be all different scenarios. Again, my question is, how binding does this contract bind you to the school? Or is it just something that the football player, the basketball player, the volleyball player can step out of? Because it's a contract, but it's a contract where I get the money if I play, I get the money if I perform, but if I go somewhere else, I'm going to be signing another contract with another NIL collective. But you're right, Hero 75. We're going to be getting that. I think we're going to be getting some of that. Hopefully there's good representation out there for these young men and women who are going to be signing these, offer sheets. I don't know what to call them. But Hero 75, thank you so much for your super chat. I do appreciate, again, your generosity to the channel. Okay, let's get back to the chat. We're going to open up the phone lines right now. Right now, phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. And I don't have to say this. We all know this, but there are some institutions out there that got money to burn. They're going to be looking to enhance the front porch of the university, the athletic department, and are they going to open up their vaults and put a whole bunch of money into their NIL collective vault for the school, where the general manager can now, we might see some schools that are not historically blue bloods in football, but they may rise up. Or basketball, soccer, you name it.
Call from
Crab Cakes and Football.
Crab Cakes and Football. Mr. Terrapin, thanks for calling. The floor is yours.
I think that judge just put the nail into the football, or any sport for that matter, in college. It may not be overnight, but it's going to happen. No way can anybody keep up with the financial demands. I know with all this money floating around that schools will try, boosters will try, but at some point it's just going to be too much for them to keep up. The richer get richer, the poorer get poorer. Before you know it, schools, probably the lower level schools at first, D3 or whatever, will start shutting down programs. Then they'll go to D2. Then it might even make it up to D1, like a Boston College or Northwestern or whoever. Enter school here. And they really won't get anybody's attention until it's a big school that decides, you know what, we can't keep up with this. And what your idea of a big school is, I don't know, but like a Tennessee or, whoever.
I don't think any big school is going to close their door because of NIL. I think what you're going to have is some schools are not going to spend as much money on NIL as others, which has always been the case when it comes to bet. There's only so many players that come out of high school, right, that really generate the big NIL money. And the schools that are in play for these guys and gals are still going to be in play for them, and the ones who aren't won't be, right? I mean, like Minnesota, we're not going to, sure, our NIL has been growing, it's going to grow some more, but we're always going to be one of the bottom schools in the Big Ten when it comes to football NIL money. We'll probably be the top hockey NIL money in the country. We're still going to be the same. It's just that now, in my opinion, in my opinion, crab cakes of football. I think just now,
Right.
there's just not going to be any guardrails, no rules, and my main question is, let's say Maryland, let's say Loxley locks himself on to a low 3-star cornerback, right? And he signed him to get an offer sheet, Maryland NIL Collective, and he signs that offer sheet, and he has an unbelievable true freshman season. Can he walk away from that contract if the contract is 3 years, let's say? Can he just walk away from it? Does it bind him to Maryland or doesn't it? That's my biggest question in this.
Well, my biggest question is, let's use Minnesota or Maryland for that matter as an example. What position for Minnesota do you really need right now, would you say? Just name whatever position of need you really need really bad right now. Quarterback, maybe?
For the last 65 years, quarterback.
Okay. As of today, y'all could pony up $3 million and go get yourself a quarterback.
Sure.
As of right now.
But
if y'all had the money, if y'all got it,
what would happen?
take 3.
He would break his ankle. He would break his ankle.
Well, that's besides the point.
Yeah.
Staying healthy is something else.
Alive and well. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
But now you could take $3 million. You know, we have Under Armour, which we do utilize, but they do keep guardrails on us so we don't turn into Oregon, basically, because Oregon goes off the rails with hundreds of millions of dollars every year. That might be what we turn in now. I have no idea. But
like from Minnesota, instead of that $3 million going to a quarterback, it's probably going to be $500,000 to get a left winger, $500,000 to get a right winger, $750,000 to get a center, $1.5 million to go get yourself a goalie. That's what the Gophers are going to do with that money. Everyone's going to use that NIL vault differently. A lot of it's going to go into football for obvious reasons because it drives the bus on everything else. But, it's...
right.
I don't think anyone's going to be dropped. None of the big schools, and like a MAC school...
Oh, I don't mean overnight. I mean, this is going to take 10, 15, but eventually somebody's going to get fed up and just go... I'm done. And for some reason, I got Boston College in my mind doing that.
Yeah.
But and the most expensive school that I can think of out there is either Texas A&M or Texas. They're the one with the most endowment. I can't remember which one it is.
Yeah, Texas A&M.
They are going to get everybody they pretty much want on their team. No one's going to be able to keep up with them. Not really.
Well,
I mean, so that's where this is going to go, and eventually it's just futile.
But again,
and now you're.
But again, if there's enough, and I think there is, if there's enough blue blood football programs that are going to be going after these student athletes, it's going to get spread around. We're already seeing that. Before when everything was under the table, there'd be a handful of schools handing out bags of cash, right? Unknowingly,
right.
They're secretly doing this. Now that it's out in the open, we're seeing a little bit of a more evenly is not the right word, a more diverse spread of elite players going to more different universities. We're seeing a little bit of that. We're Alabama's not going to be able to keep all their guys. There is more. Everyone's going to be the SEC is not going to be the only person on the block handing out bags of cash. Everybody's doing it now. So in that aspect, it's better for the sport. I just get back to my question. What does these offers, when they sign the sheet, does it lock them in to the school for any period of time? Probably not.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
If Maryland is going to pay, I don't know, X amount of dollars for a safety, quarterback, running back, what name position here, or even in basketball, like yesterday, we got a 5-star center, Derek Queen. So if we're going to try to lock him in for a long-term 3-year deal worth X amount of millions of dollars or whatever they do, I mean, we don't have to worry about somebody coming by and raising a price and stealing them from us. That might help cut down on some of the transfers, which makes me feel a little bit better about it, but I still feel like the richer are going to get richer and the poor are going to get poorer for a while. I mean, I don't see, UVA, Maryland. I mean, Maryland is, because of Under Armour, might be able to weather some of the storm, but I don't even know if we can. But other Indiana, I mean, and a bunch of other schools are just going to, at Rutgers, I mean, they're just going to, I just don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe their alumni are richer than what we think they are, and they're pulling in top 500 companies, and they're able to afford the collectives. But I just don't see it. I think it's going to come down to the money states and where the money's at, and that's who's going to get it, the most of it.
Yeah.
And so that's my big worry about it. I hope I'm wrong. I hope everything stays fine and we never notice this happen, and everybody gets their 5 or 4 star and everybody's still happy. But I've got a funny feeling a tilt's going to happen towards about 21 to 25 teams, and everybody else will get a straggler here and there. So,
all righty, sir.
All right, man.
Appreciate
that
it.
is my opinion on that. Great. Have a good night.
You got it. Thanks for the call. This is Pete Thamel, ESPN. Tom Mars, noted attorney. Tom Mars, noted attorney. I think this will be one more brick in the wall. That is the end of the NCAA. Noted attorney Tom Mars Law tells ESPN. He predicts the NCAA is poised to lose all of its upcoming antitrust cases and will need congressional intervention. They're not going to get congressional intervention, I don't think. He adds as to why. Wait, I'm sorry. Short of intervention by Congress, the demise of the NCAA now seems inevitable based on nothing but a financial analyst, as it appears the NCAA is poised to lose all of its cases, the cumulative effect of which could make the NCAA financially insolvent. He adds as to why. A bad case is a bad case, and they put all their defenses forward, and there's no precedent anywhere in the United States that supports their defenses. And, we've been saying this at Peek Around the Corner since episode number 1, August 10th. The courts made it perfectly clear in the Alston case and every other case, the student athlete has to be treated in the same manner as the student. So you cannot put guardrails on this NIL. So I would advise these athletic departments to have many different revenue streams going in to the front porch of your university, your NIL collective, your NIL bank, your NIL vault, your general manager. Make decisions just like any other general manager does with a professional team. Greg, I live about an hour away from a Division II school in Missouri that has a quarterback that graduated from a high school in Minnesota. Check his 2023 stats. He's far and away the best. Give me his name. I probably will recognize it. Give me his name in the chat, K.E. Zoo. Appreciate it. Top high school athletes are going to make bank. Yes, they are. Phone lines are open, 763-260-1333. No, money doesn't always equal wins. Black Rain is correct. For every win, there's still going to be a loss. There's only so many positions in football, in basketball. You're not going to be able to grab all the top guys. You still got to make decisions. You still got to be. You still have to evaluate the high school classes, evaluate the transfer portals. It's still. But in one aspect, this is good for college football in many aspects. But one aspect is everybody is now playing by the same rules because there is no rules. Nobody is going to restrict themselves now. Nobody is going to be watching another school and how everyone, it's wide open. Wild, wild west for everybody. No rules. No rules.
Call from
Jamie Thornton.
Jamie Thornton, Mrs. Arkansas Razorback. She is recovering. Does she have her voice? We're going to find out here soon. The floor is yours, Jamie. How you doing?
Well, Greg, I wish I could say I'm doing better. I had to call in because this is such a big issue, but you can tell, I'm not feeling it. Neither one of us. It's been a bad week, but it's been such a big week. It's okay. I got my cough drops here, I'm making it. It just really... It's really interesting in the chat. We've talked about the breakaway, right? The power two. This just feels like more of a very slow internal breakaway, if you see what I'm saying. We're just seeing it just chipped away piece by piece. We know the possible 14-team playoffs is in a very early exploration stage right now. But if we're talking about the SEC and the Big getting 4 AQs each, right, on a 14-team, I mean, that's almost like an internal breakaway. They're getting the majority, right? Here we go again with NIL, and this is what I really wanted your take on with this. If there's not going to be any rules, if the NCAA does go away, they're just pointless or meaningless, there's not going to be a cap. How are schools outside of the Big Ten and the SEC going to be able to compete and ever get a 5-star or a 4-star again? And I'm talking about even like, if we go down to mid-tier, right? The mid-tier, the Minnesotas and the Arkansas, and they're gonna have so much more money than people in the Big 12 or what's left of the ACC. What could possibly get done about that? And I'm not gonna say much anymore because I've lost my voice.
Got it.
Love the show. You've been amazing this week, but I really wanted to hear your take on that.
Well, why don't you can get off the phone and listen to it.
Thanks, Greg. Thank you, Greg. And we'll pick Suey.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Jamie. Hope you start feeling better. Thank you so very much. No, I still think now, and this is why USC called it Big Ten. This is why Texas and Oklahoma called it the SEC. This is why Washington and Oregon made the jump to the Big Ten, even though they're going to come in as a discount for the next 6 years, because they all want the highest ceiling possible in the conference, the most money coming to them. But it doesn't eliminate 100% any school that's not a Big Ten or the SEC for competing. I mean, it makes it more difficult. But some schools are going to be able to raise a whole lot of money. A whole lot of money for the NIL Collective. And none of that, or hardly any of that, is going to be the school's media money. Now, I think that the Big Ten and the SEC, maybe the Big 12 and the ACC, but definitely the SEC and the Big Ten are going to use a little bit of that percentage of those big media money to put to each team's collectives. I think that's going to get formulated. That is a story that I'm going to be watching. And that is going to help each of their schools. No question about it. Yeah. So, but again, will a school be able to get, will any other school be able to get a 5-star? I think so. because they're going to put whatever money they got to that 5-star. Maybe they make a judgment that they're not going to get that second RB running back, or they're going to make a decision to go after a big-time quarterback, and they're going to pool enough money to get that quarterback. The advantages grow for the Blue Bloods in the SEC, Blue Bloods in the Big Ten. The advantages grow. I agree with that. That is why USC called the Big Ten. This is why Texas and Oklahoma, everyone says Texas and Oklahoma, it's a lot easier to win the Big 12 championship. They knew this day was coming. That is why there's some comments out there that maybe these ACC schools shouldn't try to leave the ACC because it's going to be easier to win the ACC conference championship. That's not how presidents and athletic directors think. They want the most resources as possible, the most exposure as possible, the biggest branding as possible. So you're going to go to the highest ground possible, each school, each conference. So North Carolina, if they have the opportunity and it's more difficult to win SEC in the Big Ten, they're still going to jump. Same with Clemson, same with Miami, same with Florida State. Now, we'll take example of, for example, Minnesota. Does Minnesota and Iowa State, who usually battling the same type of, we're talking football player, about the same level of degree of football recruiting rankings, that same. Does Minnesota now sort of get the edge over Iowa State Cyclones for the next 10 years because of the money advantage? Now Minnesota's going to have over Iowa State? Possibly. Stuff like that. The middle of the Big Ten, the bottom of the SEC, bottom of the Big Ten, they're going to have advantages over ACC and the Big 12 that they did not have before.
Call from
JD.
Mr. Seminole, holy smokes, the floor is yours. What do you got to say, good sir?
How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. It's been a busy week.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. To kind of chime in on this, you've got Sankey and Petiti weren't caught flat-footed. They knew this was coming.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew a vacuum was about to be created by the NCAA's just more or less losing in every case. The NCAA is so resistant to change. It's their own fault on where they stand. But they didn't have enough foresight to, they're trying to go backwards instead of moving forward with the modern iteration of the NCAA. Do you agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
And now what's happening, as far as NIL, well, let me back up here a little bit. As far as NIL collectives and teams overpaying to get athletes, yes, you're still going to get that on some isolated basis. But these collectives, they talk to each other. They're in these collaborations and associations. They've almost already set almost like a salary cap for what athletes should get paid. Different levels. There's different levels for each position group. They're already doing this. Do I think what's going to happen is that the Power Two decided to get ahead of this. If there's going to be a new governing either rules or an association or whatever iteration it is going to come in the future, they want to make sure it's to their liking. And so their association, between the Big and the SEC, they're already crossing that bridge now. They're getting out ahead of things. But I do believe there's going to be either a salary cap or some type of universal pay schedule or arrange something amongst all the power conferences, or maybe between the Power 2 and or the Power 4, whatever it's going to be. I as of a week or two ago, I thought it was going to be total chaos. I don't think that's going to happen.
You're not going to get a salary cap unless the players are represented by a union, and that's agreed upon.
Well, I don't know if it's going to be exactly a salary cap, but there's going to be some type of guardrails or something put together within these conferences. I don't think
so. The court is going to come down on those conferences and schools harshly if they do that. Now, will there be would there be a market set like Florida State, Miami, everyone's going for the same 3 quarterbacks, and okay, no one's willing to go more than $6 million a year for this guy. The market will set itself naturally to particular positions in particular years, but nothing's going to be agreed upon. There's going to be no collusion, in my opinion, written down, text messages, nothing, no guardrails, because the courts people will sue and the courts will have a field day. There can't be a cap unless the student athletes agree upon that and they get something else in return. And we're not at that point. We should be at that point, but we're not, in my opinion.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I get your point. You make great points. There'll be something in place. And that doesn't mean that teams can't overpay. I mean, they can. I mean, even in the NFL, there's kind of going rates for position groups, and that changes, by the year. There will be the whole law of diminishing returns. At some point, collectives are going to be like, are we really going to spend $25 million a year on this roster? Are we going to spend $30 million a year on the roster? You're probably right as far as there won't be a salary cap at the university or conference level. But the collectives, again, they know what the going rate is. When you have a lot of these running backs, let's just say, you've seen plenty of stories in the off season where third string running backs are demanding $100,000 payout to stay on the roster, or they're transferring. And a lot of these, collectives are just saying, I'm sorry, it's not worth $100,000 for a third string running back. And they know what, because they all talk to each other. They know what they're paying. And but you do have universities. You look at the Nebraska quarterback. What is it? Wasn't that Raiola?
Yep.
So they're going to overpay because they need to insert some juice into their program.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're going to get that, and you get that in the NFL too. But as far as all of the other, I see that. I see your points are valid. I just wonder, in a year or two, what are we looking at as far as are they going to potentially go down the employee route, or are they going to be where you're an employee of the conference? Those I don't know. I would tend to agree with you at the moment. The answer would be no, but we don't know.
Our position here at PATC, since we started, was episode number 1, is to get the student athletes to be employees of the school or conference, to have a collective bargaining agreement, because all this was going to happen, and it did. This was all really, for me and for other people, it was quite obvious what was happening here. You got to get these student athletes to be employees. So for the good of the sport, for the good of them, collective bargaining agreement, make sure they get their health benefits. And, for the structure of the game, so there can be some for the good of the fans too. Because right now it's completely out of control. But when it comes to NIL, man, it's just I think people can consider college football right now, the closest professional sports league is that college football resembles is Major League Baseball. You're going to have the Yankees, you're going to have the Red Sox, you're going to have the Dodgers, and you're going to have a few more, and then everybody else is going to be way behind on resources. And if you do everything right, if you're one of those college football programs that shoot the moon once in a while, you do everything right, even though you don't have the resources, you can make a run at something special in that season. That's Major League Baseball. That is college football, in my opinion.
No, well, I agree with you. I agree with you, Rhett. You know, the size of your fan base and the willingness of your boosters to fund the program, it means everything. Yeah. You know, Ohio State's always going to get theirs, and you know, there's other teams. Now there are teams that we don't think of as being a yearly contender, and like you suggested earlier, this is going to open the doors for them. May not be annually, but it will be, you know, maybe every 2 to 3 years. Yeah. But you know, I you know, again, and I'm going to wind this down. You know, it may never happen that it's an employee or a salary cap or collective bargaining. I just don't believe they're going to let the chaos that exists now go another 5, 6, 7 years. They're going to rein this in the next 2 to 3 years, whatever that version is. Now, it may go in cycles. It may be 2 or 3 years. They have a plan in place, and somebody sues, and they have to modify it. But
this puts into picture why Florida State is trying to do what they're doing. Florida State is trying to elevate to higher ground, just like USC did, just like Texas and Oklahoma did. Florida State's going to be running $35 million behind programs that they should be competing with for, you know, national playoffs and championships and all that. And they're looking at a future where they're going to have to fill in the gaps because Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan State, Purdue, Northwestern, they're all going to be getting $35 million and more than Florida State is yearly. And the boosters, they can't keep up filling the gap like that. It just is not possible. That's why Florida State is in the courts today.
Well, one of the things that gets discussed, at least in the past, 6 months now, the court case has been presented. That's the general topic of discussion. But back a year ago, the alarming or the things that brought the most alarm in the fan base wasn't just the discrepancy that was coming between conferences, between the P2 and everyone else. It was the inevitable decline of the ACC. The SEC is going to get the preeminent viewership time slots. A lot of ACC schools or a lot of ACC games will be shown on CW, ESPNU, in other places. You'll still have an ACC game that'll get a primetime slot, but it won't get presented like SEC games. And there'll be a precipitous decline over a period of 3 to 4 years. So it's not just what the discrepancy was going to be. Nothing was going to stay the same. You're either going to advance or you're going to decline, but you're not going to be able to stay the same as a college program. The whole model's changed. And that was the thing FSU feared, and we knew. It's just everything that's happening now, everybody thought that would be 3 to 4 years from now. No, it's happening now, today. Timeline is sped up. And the decline was the thing that was the most That's what made us the most nervous, the potential decline.
Yeah.
And but you nailed it. I mean, you got all that. You said it perfectly. So,
Yeah.
all right, sir. Thank you so much.
Appreciate
I enjoy
it,
your show
JD.
as always.
All right, Mr. Seminole. Thanks for calling. Beautiful call, JD Seminole. Joe Z. Early P Cloak and Dagger for a third month. Holy smokes. Without a CBA, a collective bargaining agreement, and a players union.
Call from
ABO.
Soap, can you hold on for just a moment, sir?
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. Joe Z with a early P Cloak and Dagger membership. Without a CBA players union, resistance is futile. Players just are independent contractors. Joe, you're absolutely correct. Again, we need representation for the football players, basketball players, for all of them with a collective bargaining agreement with the conference. I agree. Thank you, Joe, once again for your generosity to this channel. You are officially, for the third month in a row, holy smokes, you are officially knighted Cloak and Dagger. Thank you, Joe, once again for your generosity, for your incredible comments in the chat. Soap, the floor is yours. What do you got to say, good sir?
Well, Greg, I was looking at when you were doing your presentation, I think it was the second to last page that you showed. It was a comment from the attorney in Tennessee, and it made a really great impression upon me because the attorney used the term monopoly. He said the monopoly of the NCAA will not be allowed to stand in the NIL time and in the NIL future. And then they used the term on the last page. They talked about the oh gosh, I had it in my head. The the antitrust bill
Sherman
from
Act? Sherman Act?
the Sherman Act. Yeah,
Yeah.
they talk about the Sherman Act, which is an antitrust
Yeah.
bill. This signals to me, Greg, that we are seeing the end of the NCAA as we know it. The NCAA will not be allowed to exist as a governing body to pass out penalties and so forth in this new era. It's gone by. They no longer can do it in football. That's what happened today. Now what they can do is they can put on, national championships like the NCAA basketball tournament or the baseball tournament, the swimming tournament. They can have national championships, but they are no longer going to be allowed to operate as a governing body with exclusivity to telling the players what they can and they cannot do, because it's going to be run through the legal system now. And you use the term an offer sheet is now going to be able to go out to these prospective students. Well, anytime there's an offer sheet, what follows the offer sheet is a contract. And they're going to be contracts with these young men and women that they're going to have to commit to the university for a set time period. They're going to have to have a morality clause in these contracts. The legal system is going to provide the corrections to the system. It's no longer the NCAA or the rules that they come up with. This is a sea change. Today is a sea change in all of governing of college football or college sports together.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah. And that's it for me. I just had to. I'm sorry to call you 2 days in a row, but I just
I
had to
appreciate
get that out, man.
Appreciate it. Love it. Thank you, sir.
All right, my pleasure. Bye-bye.
Great call. not only is it a sea change, it's happening immediately. It's happening tonight. There was different levels of cooperation between NIL Collectives and the staffs of the sports sponsored teams within all of these athletic departments. There's all different rules, different these athletic departments were handling all this differently. There are different state laws, this and that. Everyone now is the same. You can induce, offer whatever, whenever, wherever. You can give a hamburger. There is no... But at least everybody is inside the same guardrails, in which there is no guardrails. At least everybody is the same. Zach Zabrowski, thank you. Woodbury, I'll look it up. Thank you very much. KZ Zoo, appreciate it. Now, Alan Tran here says he feels sorry for the Ivy League players. First of all, if you're an Ivy League student athlete, you're probably going to do pretty good in life. But even as important, these Ivy League players, they're going to become professional athletes. They're going to have contracts. If you go look at the Dartmouth case, they're going to get unionized. They're going to get paid. And these Ivy League schools have a whole bunch of money. The Ivy League schools, we don't know which way they're going to go in the next 10 years. Are they going to be major players? Or are they going to continue as is?
Dan Miter.
Dan, the floor is yours. Thanks for calling, sir. Appreciate it.
I just want to ask you that I think this NIL deal will eventually even out, because I can't see these big-time schools eventually paying these athletes, and they end up being, I don't want to say duds, but not what they expected. And that eventually, I think the transfer portal is just going to go wild. You know what I mean? Because they're just going to be more and more. It's going to get worse before it gets better, unless there's some kind of guardrail put on it. But what do you think of that?
I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. I'm more concerned about the transfer portal. I'm more concerned about roster management. I'm more concerned about these coaches continually having to recruit their own players, much less anybody outside of their roster. I want there to be some binding contract from the student athlete to the football player to the program, be it 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. You can have an out clause, whatever. That is what I'm most concerned about. I don't want there to be no guardrails with the transfer portal. It's gonna get more crazy than ever, and a lot of these football players are not going to be without a home because they get stuck in the portal. There's nowhere to go to. They have to drop down a level. I agree with you. The portal is what I'm more concerned about.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, because what they're trying to do is make college football kind of like the NFL, but you got to realize some of these players, even in the NFL, they get traded or waived or what, so be it.
Yeah.
But, even like Patrick Mahomes, he's been there 8 years. 5 years ago, yeah, he was a good quarterback, but he ain't getting to the elite status. These football players are only there 4 years. Well, it could be a big need, I guess, but
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That they're taking some big risk here, and I think eventually it's just going to even out. It's going to take some time, and apparently we can't put some guardrails on the money aspect. So, because the NCAA doesn't have all the things in place like the NFL. So eventually it'll work out. Some of these smaller division, or not even Power 5, but smaller, G5s, let's say, it's going to filter down. It's just going to take some time. The upper echelon's going to have their day in the sun here for a little bit, but it's going to eventually level out, I think.
Okay. I appreciate the call, Dan. Are you a first-time caller?
Yes, I am.
Please call again, sir. Excellent call.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Beautiful. I agree with Dan. I'm more concerned about the transfer portal. I'm more concerned about there's got to be somewhere. Now I want the football players at some point to have some flexibility, freedom to go in the portal. But on the other hand, I want there to be binding contracts at some point. I mean, you can't constantly be waking up at night like the professional leagues. When you got a player under 3 years, you know they're not going to be going out the back door, going to somewhere else the next week. College football, you cannot have this. That is where I want the collective bargaining agreement, binding contracts. That's where I want everything to happen. The NIL, this is what I've been saying since. It's a big story tonight. Sea change, no question about it. And for me personally, the biggest part of it is everybody now is going to treat NIL the exact same way. We've never had that before. Okay, that's a big story. But NIL, am I surprised that the student athletes is not going to be treated any differently than a student? No, because the courts have been telling us that for a long time. But Charlie Baker, and I'm going to tell you something. I'm not even going to rip on the NCAA right now. I'm going to rip on Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti. I've said this before. If you give me a moment, I'm about to go on a rant.
Call from
Steve.
Steve, can you hold on a second? Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah, can you hold on 1 second?
Sure.
I just want to go on a little bit of a rant here. I'm not even going to rip on Charlie Baker right now. Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey, they do a lot of talking without saying anything. Greg Sankey has not been this great reformer. He keeps talking about how he wants resolutions. He doesn't ever tell us anything. He's been dragging his feet on everything. He has. He has not been out on the front edge of anything. And Tony Petitti's had the job for a year, and I don't know what his vision is at all, except for he wants to expand the college football playoffs. When it comes to collective bargaining agreement, student athlete becoming employees to the conference, or maybe the school, or maybe both, and Tony Petitti and Sankey have not told us where they are in any of this stuff, except for trying to go to Congress and give a special carve-out, which we all knew the chances of that was slim and nothing, and Slim just left town. Basically, that's where we're at. So Sankey and Petitti, man up, belly up to the bar, actually tell us your vision. Let's get something done. Steve, Mr. Bearcat, I appreciate your patience. The floor is yours.
Greg, I got a question that, in my mind, I can't wrap my mind around it. It hasn't affected it yet, but will a bigger influx of NIL into these schools, like if a conference pays or whatever, will it affect the non-revenue sports, good or bad? You understand where I'm coming from, Greg?
Yep. And again, where does Title IX come into play on this?
That was going to be you read my mind. That was going to be my next question.
I'm guessing it doesn't come into play because everybody's treating this as professional now. The courts are. So you cannot go back and tell these athletic departments to make sure that 50% of the NIL goes to whoever, be it female or male, in a non-revenue sport, because that isn't the true market for those who are bigger names in the revenue sport. So the courts can't have it both ways either. I think Title IX, I think all that, I probably shouldn't say this, but all that is going to get pushed to the side, I think.
Yeah, yeah, most likely. Next point, and people might call me crazy for thinking this. I actually think nothing's really changed except, well, it has changed. I really think, and you brought up a very good point earlier about good representation. I really think if you got somebody representing you as the athlete, and let's say a kid's got he's a 4-star or he's even a 5-star. You know, well, I'd like to go to Ohio State or I'd like to go to Michigan, but Minnesota's had pretty good success with their running backs, and hopefully the guy that's representing him says, hey, listen, you may take a little less money, but do you want to play sooner? Because Ohio State's sitting with a 5-star and a 4-star that are a sophomore and a freshman. Michigan's sitting with the same thing, and there's only a 3-star up at Minnesota. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
So I think it kind of helps sometimes level the playing field somewhat. Not greatly, but I think it does. Am I wrong thinking that?
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
I mean, it's just I think with it boils down to good representation.
Yep.
And as far as I liked your rant about Sankey and Petiti, because I'm quite frankly, as a Big 12 fan, and I'm biased, I'm tired of everybody thinking those two got anything on your mark. Because so far I haven't seen it, Greg.
Mm-hmm.
Other than the money, and up there talking that they're the power guys, but they've got no more vision. They've got probably, especially in the media, less contacts than your mark. So let everybody talk about Petiti and Sankey in the Big Ten, the SEC. And when someone's quiet and doesn't say much, like a man like your mark,
mm-hmm.
they're probably up to something.
Yeah.
Probably up to something.
Yeah.
He's probably got a vision of how this thing's all going to play out. So I agree with you about, you guys want to stand up there and talk, go ahead and talk. But, let's see.
I just wish
where
they'd
all your
say
talk is
something,
taken.
though. They talk, but they're not saying anything.
Yeah. I get that part.
Yeah.
But anyhow, you mentioned you were going to rate the Big 12 quarterbacks. You know what I told you a month ago?
Yes, Sorsby.
He better be in the top 5 or I'm real upset.
Steve, I got so many Big 12 people telling me that their guy better be in the top 4, top 5.
Well, I think he's going to be a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Even though he's a sophomore from what we went through last year.
Yeah,
so
I think so.
Hopefully everything will be good.
Yeah.
Hey, Greg, have a good night. Thanks for taking my call.
Appreciate it, Mr. Bearcat. Thank you.
All right. See you.
Great call. Becky, go Huskies. Look, it's not going to change the money aspect of NIL at most places, but it will allow some who didn't want to do NIL work with players the opportunity. Yeah, it's going to get everybody at least doing the same thing. Not the same amount of money, going to football. Everyone's going to be allocate their NIL resources differently, but everybody's basically going to do the head coach. We're just going to talk about football for now because the college football YouTube channel, you're going to have the coach, general manager, NIL Collective, all working together constantly. That has not been happening everywhere. I know it has not been happening at Minnesota, but now it is. Big sea change.
Call from
Becky, go Huskies.
Becky, go Huskies. I was just talking about your comment. I think the biggest change in all this is that everyone's going to be doing the same thing. And that is the coach, general manager. They're going to be hiring general managers. They're going to be hiring budget guys. They're going to be doing a general manager, head coach collective, working together to target who they're going to recruit, who they're going to offer basically everything's going to be in-house pretty much. That to me is the biggest sea change. What do you say, Becky? Go Huskies.
Well, I said that, I was like, I don't think anything's going to change on the money front for most schools.
Mm-hmm.
But, what it does do now is it does open the door for companies that were kind of major companies that were kind of on the fringe of wanting to do NIL with the players.
Good
This
point.
opens that door for the schools to now be the intermediary and bring them in.
Good point.
And I say
that is a great point. That's one of the big things that have been going on in Minnesota. We have these big corporate, and they've been skittish about getting involved. That is a great point. Go Becky. I appreciate you saying that.
Because I bring it up because there was a tweet that the University of Washington posted right after Jed Fish was hired.
Mm-hmm.
And it had, Seattle is just full of stupid money with a lot of big corporations, right?
Yep.
And they listed them. Nordstrom, Starbucks, Microsoft, Boeing, on and on and on. And Amazon is not involved at all. Amazon might now be involved. They can now go to Amazon, the University of Washington, and be like, oh, hi, I've done this before, but now we can be the intermediary with what we have is like a legal team, because you have to have legal for this contract, and you guys. So now there's literally nothing stopping a company like Apple or Amazon or whomever from now they got their foot in the door. They just gave those companies their foot in the door.
Yeah. That's a great point, and it completely escaped me. So you're great point, Becky.
And do we not remember SMU in the 80s?
Mm-hmm. Yep, we do.
It's SMU on steroids.
Yes.
This is, and I've said it to people, I'm like, the top 20 universities will leave the rest of the FBS in the dust. They're going to do it. Because, you get a school have a ton of Nike money with Phil Knight as being kind of like a big booster.
Yeah.
But now there's nothing stopping Nike from being their one corporation. And, Nike's not even the only major company in Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing stopping these companies now. And before it was rich billionaire oil tycoons who were sliding money into the players' pockets, here's 20 or 30 grand for a great week last week. You just can now go right to them and go, hey, can we get a check for a collective?
Yeah.
This is how much we want to pay a quarterback. This is how much we want to pay a 5-star safety.
Yep.
Tennessee and UVA opened Pandora's box, and there's no rules. There's no rules.
No.
And the worst part, and this is what I feel bad for, is we have already seen NIL deals. We've already seen them. If people don't know, go look up. It was a Chicago Bear from the University of Florida who signed a contract. Didn't even notice it because he can't have a lawyer. He can't have an agent. He's having to sue to get out of this. Basically, he had to give him 25% of his lifetime earnings.
Yeah.
For 20 years, 30 years or whatever. It just, because they were like, oh no, this isn't an NIL, this is a loan. It just opens those doors now. Hopefully it closes that door where it's like, oh, this is predatory, and now the university has some legal stuff, but it's so and don't ask Congress to get involved. Congress isn't going to do anything. that's what that's what the judge basically said was, well, Congress, has to decide this. Like, I don't know if we noticed it, but Congress can't compromise on anything. Like, when they do, it's because somebody wrote the bill. But if they have to write the bill and write the law, they're not going to do that. They haven't done that in like 10 years.
Yeah. Yep. I agree with you, Becky. Great call. Excellent call.
I mean, this is where we're at, and I really feel bad for the E5. Like,
well, nothing really changed. I mean, nothing really. The players that they're targeting are going to be the same players for G5.
Yeah, but the thing was, Greg, is they would get the transfers. The kids who weren't playing much at those other schools, they could get those kids, right?
Well, maybe.
The third or fourth string. But this now opens up that door where you're no longer scholarship. Well, guess what? There's nothing stopping a booster from paying the tuition of the player and calling it NIL.
Exactly.
Those great players.
The one aspect.
Those great players aren't going there anymore.
There's only so many. There's only so many positions on the team. There's only so many snaps in a football game, and players do like to go play eventually at some point. So there is only so much. There are still going to be players. It isn't going to. I agree with like the top 20, 25 teams with the biggest NIL collectives. They're going to be able to really go to town. But even among those 25, it's going to be spread out some because they're all going to be able to use their money. They're all going to be using it the same way for inducement. But there's only so many players out there, and there's only so many slots in those top schools.
But now you have this situation where, say, you're a starting player, and we want to go get that 5-star kid. We can still go get that 5-star kid, give him your scholarship, and you're now a walk-on. Can't include scholarship anymore, or vice versa. I can give that 5-star kid, oh, you're a walk-on, but you're not having to pay anything. Like, it's paid for, and you're getting the extra. It's like you now have you could have teams who essentially have backups that are better than some Power 5 schools.
Yes, I agree. I agree with what you're saying, Becky. We have, since the transfer portal has been used here the last few years, we have seen a lot of SEC players, for example, who were 5-star, 4-star. They have gone in the portal to drop down a league or go to somewhere else just because they wanted to get some playing time. Because there's only so many starting spots in the SEC. There's a law of diminishing returns. Like, there's only so many playing time for each team. So I think where this hurts, in my opinion, where schools are going to be at a disadvantage going forward, if the SEC and the Big Ten uses some of that media money in their NIL vaults, which I think they will, I think it's your middle Big 12 schools, middle ACC schools, bottom Big 12 schools, bottom ACC schools. I think it's going to be much more difficult for them to compete yearly on average, because now they're going to be losing some recruiting battles that they were winning before, but they're not going to have that NIL collective be boosted up by big media money. You know what I'm saying? I think maybe that's the biggest difference. But like Washington, your Huskies, you're going to be getting that big media money a few years from now. And you're going to be in a lot better spot than you were if you would have stayed in a crumbling Pac-12. It's just that was what Washington was looking out for, the student athletes, the front porch of the university. That's why they went for it. They went for the Big Ten.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other thing is they've already approached two really big-time billionaires to live in the area to see if they already donate, on the academic side.
Mm-hmm.
So the two of them already do that. So they're like, hey, can you donate 2% of that to athletics? Because it would be an insane amount of money for the athletic program. And now, the apprehensions that they brought up were just eliminated. And that was Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer.
Mm.
So it's okay, we've got this and we can approach them now and get these guys on board. So it just opens so many doors. And I mean, all of this started because Tennessee was doing something with a car or something like that. I can't even remember what it was. Like a helicopter? It was a helicopter, right?
A plane.
Plane.
They sent a plane for them. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's now getting 5-star kids, every school has a multi-millionaire with a private jet.
Yeah.
And it's just an insane, and I don't even know what UVA did. I have no idea. I haven't been able to figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm they did something, but I can't, I probably read it, but I can't remember what it was. But it's so scary right now for anybody who says it. And it's if anybody's not paying attention to what's will there be a breakaway of the Power 2? Because it's essentially what it's becoming. Probably not. Not anytime in the next 5 years, but those media deals are up in 7 years, Greg. That's where
I think 7 and 8 years from now, maybe a year earlier than that. Yeah, we're gonna have to talk about that because I mean, at some point, ESPN and Fox are going to make a decision here. Do we want to pay for this stuff, or are we good with this content? NBC and CBS involved too. It's we have all this. Do we need these? And would it be more lucrative for us to carry them and then have them have their own playoff? Because if you just go get the biggest brands that are out there, whether the ACC falls apart now or in 5 years or, it's setting everything up that they could have, 20 schools each, and that'd be it. They'd have the top 40 brands and the top 40 teams that people watch. I'm not saying it'll happen. I'm not saying it won't happen, though. But I'm saying, they want to pay the players. They now can pay the players. Mm-hmm.
That's what they're going to do. And
yeah.
I don't think it's not going to come from this media money, but the next media money, that's where it'll come from. So I just want to say that, Greg, it's a very scary day. It's an intriguing day.
Yeah.
Can't be wrong on that. And, like I said, if FSU can play in another conference next year or in 5 years, dominoes are starting to fall. And unless Congress gets involved and actually, Congress does something, which, this will just be muddied and take another 5-6 years anyway, if they get involved, because they'll have 100 hearings and then write a bill that neither side can decide on. And I can say that definitively because they can't do anything right now anyway. So, but it's a different day and age, but I think Jay Billis said it best. The players need to have contracts. Something needs to be put in place. Collective bargaining, contracts, agents. Players need to be protected now.
Yes.
More so than before. But anyway, Greg, love the show.
Beautiful.
Everybody, hi. Go Huskies.
Thank you, Becky. Okay. Great call. Great call. If you're new to the show or if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to our show. Hit the subscribe button and make sure your notifications are turned on, because we can come on live at any time. Early in the morning, lunchtime, late night, we can come on live at any time. We go where the story goes like nobody other. So hit the subscribe button, open up the notifications, smash the like button. I appreciate it so very much. A lot of great comments in the comments section. Again, I do not see a Power 2 breakaway for at least another 7-8 years. Not until after this current contract, the next contract of the playoffs. There's too much going on right now. The ground is shifting beneath these guys. Tony Petitti and Sankey, I don't think they even have the vision to do a power breakaway. I don't think they're not breaking away. There's a Power 2. There has been for years when it comes to power, influence, money. But the breakaway, I don't see it happening. If it does happen, I don't see it happening for another 7 or 8 years. Now, Grateful Trojan says there could be a breakaway from within the Power 2. I suppose that's a possibility. I think that's less of one than even the breakaway of the Power 2. There's a lot of differences between SEC schools and Big Ten schools. I have a hard time, again, maybe somewhere down the road, but nothing that I'm really, college football is peek around the corner. There's enough stuff. There's enough big change going on right now. It's fun to speculate, but we don't take any of that seriously for now. For now. Universities fund NIL directly? Yes. Absolutely. That's what I'm talking about. There might be some universities now, there is no guardrails, there's nothing. The money might just come flooding in. Maybe they take 2% of some endowment. Who knows? Maybe some state passes some gambling bill where 1% of the proceeds go into NIL for the university. We have no idea. I don't. Maybe you do. I do not. There's going to be different revenue streams going into these NIL bank vaults at these athletic departments. And again, though, there's a law of diminishing return. I mean, not one school is going to be able to grab. It's still, there's going to be as many wins as losses. Many of the schools that have a hard time competing at the top level of the conference are going to continue to have a difficult time. But some of them might spring forward because, for whatever reason, their NIL vault just grows substantially more than their competitors. We shall see. We shall see. Okay, we're going to close it down for tonight. I do appreciate you all coming in. We weren't going to do a show tonight. We were not going to do a show, but breaking news. NIL, Tennessee, Virginia, the states, the attorney generals, the NCAA takes another L. There is no cap, no rules, no guardrails. And I think the biggest sea change that is happening starting right now tonight is everybody's going to treat NIL the same. The collectives, the coaches, general manager, the athletic director, they're all going to be working in unison, or they're going to try to work in unison to recruit, to target student athletes, the high school players, transfer portal players. Every school is going to be doing the same thing for the first time, probably forever. We used to have people going around with McDonald's bags of cash, giving it under the table to a high school player. Some schools did it, many did not. We're all going to be following the same rules. There is none. I think I like that part. We're all going to be doing the same thing. Some of us are going to be doing bigger and better than others, but we're all going to be doing the same thing. Everything. So I want to thank you all for the generous donations, the memberships. If you are interested in becoming an early peak member, a member of this show, go to the link in the description below the video. Hit that link, hit the join button, and become an early peak member. Thank you for the donations. Thank you for the incredible comments in the chat room. I've read a lot of them. I couldn't get to them. The great phone calls once again from the PATC community. Keep your head on a swivel. This weekend, we're going to be talking about quarterbacks. Big 10, Big 12. I'm going to be ranking them. You're going to be yelling at me. You're going to be yelling at me saying your quarterback should be ranked higher than what I rank them. Yeah. I'm going to get chewed out by many of you in the PATC community, and I can't wait. So keep your head on the swivel. We're going to be coming on live this weekend. Quarterback rankings, Big 10, Big 12, buckle up. And then, of course, we go where the story goes. If there's some big breaking news somewhere in college football, we're going to be here. You're going to be there. We're going to be together. Until next time, from all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.